Hello, all you positive heads out there. It's so good to be back with all you beautiful reflections of the one source consciousness that creates and animates all things. If you're new to this podcast, of course, we're super happy to have you here. And if you've been listening and enjoying for a while, I would be super grateful if you would please take a moment to give us a review on Apple Podcasts. It's one of the best and simplest ways to pay it forward and help others find the show so that they too can tap into the powerful perspectives and positive vibrations we are collectively emanating. The other unique and magical way to share this show is by sending any friends you think would benefit from listening to this podcast our Game with the Universe link at positivehead.com/game. Also listed in the show notes, which will serve them up a quote unquote random episode when they click it. Just instruct them before clicking the link to close their eyes for a moment and sincerely ask the universe to queue up the episode that contains the insight and perspectives that they most need to hear at this point in their life journey, and then click to listen to whatever episode is synchronistically served up to them. I have heard time and time again from people about the incredible results they received playing the game. So just tell your friends magical results are guaranteed or their karma back.
All right, all you positive heads, welcome. Welcome, one and all. I am super excited that you've joined me on this magical today. And today is one of those extra specially magical days where I have a special guest with me. Today I have Holly Duckworth. She is a fellow level 3 QHHT practitioner, and she just wrote a second book called Finding Forgiveness. Welcome to the show, Holly. Thanks so much for joining me.
Hi, Erica. Thank you for having me. And it's so good to see you. We don't see each other enough. Dang it.
I know. Yeah. So we got to hook up on Zoom, and that's cool. And then we get to have conversations that everybody else gets to hear too, because they need to be shared. Yeah.
Right.
That's
Thank
awesome.
You. Yeah.
So tell me how you came upon the idea of the second book, because I just want to, before we get into this, you have been on the show before, and all you guys need to do is just search. Do you know what episode number it was? Probably not.
I don't.
Yeah, of course not.
Yeah, it was a while ago. A couple years ago.
Well, okay, so a couple years ago was when the first book came out. So you can just put in Holly's name, and what's the book called, the first book?
Finding Purpose. Surprising Wisdom from the Higher Self.
Awesome. So you guys can go back and listen to the episode about that book. But tell me about how you came into writing the second one.
Okay. So I wrote the first one, just a tiny little refresher on finding purpose. A few years into my QHHT life, I started recognizing that people were asking the same questions. And the questions that kept repeating over and over and over again is, what is my purpose? And what is my life lesson, right? And it's like, well, okay, so if people didn't ask that, then I'd be like, hey, other people are asking this question. You want to ask that question too? And so we'd have that almost always on the list of questions. And then I got really freaked out because what I realized, not only were the questions the same, but the answers were too.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah, across clients. And like the same answers kept coming up and coming up. And I'm a research geek. And so I actually plowed textual analysis through some research software. And sure enough, my intuition was dead on. And it's like, oh, there's very, very, very few answers to what is my life purpose and what is my life lesson. So that was kind of the first book. I'm thinking to myself, everybody needs to know this, you know, get ready for your QHHT session. And in the meantime, know this, right?
Yeah.
And so that was the first book. And I thought that was going to be the only book. So I wrote that book and I'm like, so glad. I'm so glad that's over.
Right.
Meditation one day, talking to them. And they told me that, no, actually, there's going to be a trilogy, that first book was the first of 3.
Perfect.
And they told me what the second one was going to be, which was this topic of forgiveness, which also shows up a lot. I'm sure it does for you in your QHHT sessions.
All the time.
Forgiveness, yeah, all the time. And so the first book is Finding Purpose, and then subtitled Surprising Wisdom from the Higher Self. And then this second one is Finding Forgiveness, Surprising Healing from the Higher Self. So it's using forgiveness as a healing tool. And what I began to discern, just kind of like pick apart, is as I'm working with different clients, many clients over years, of how the higher self is approaching forgiveness with them in their QHHT sessions. So then I had some very generous clients that would let me just ask questions directly of the higher self about forgiveness, about how it worked. And then they gave me this 4-step process of forgiveness that became then the material of the second book. And a lot of times what I when we hear about forgiveness, everybody says, oh yeah, you need to forgive, and forgiveness is healing. Those are all, easy to digest concepts. But even when I was writing the book and trying to do a little background and research and, making sure that I've got my corners swept in terms of my understanding of forgiveness, nobody tells you how to forgive. They tell you need to do it, and it's like, oh, okay, I forgive. Wait, I said it, but nothing happened, right? And so this is the actual process of how to forgive. And it's 4 steps. It's see, accept, release, and move. And so then the book is oriented to those 4 steps of the forgiveness process from the higher self.
So, okay, repeat those 4 steps again.
See, accept, release, and move.
Perfect.
I never thought about the 4th one. I would
right,
never
and keep it moving.
Exactly. Go forward. Don't look back.
Yes. Absolutely. I love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Great.
It's not mine. It came from them.
Of course. So for anyone, and of course, listeners to this show, I talk about this stuff on a regular too. So this understanding of them, let's clarify that, even though I do discuss this, but I don't know if I actually talk about this specific thing, right? Because we as practitioners, and Dolores herself, if they're ever listening to a Dolores video, will say they or them when we're talking about the higher self.
Yeah.
So, and let's explain what that is. So
okay. So quantum healing hypnosis technique, Dolores Cannon's method of hypnosis, deep hypnosis, healing hypnosis. We get into a really, really, really deep state of trance because we have this ridiculous luxury of time. A session is 5 to 7 hours. And so, and the client's in hypnosis for 2 to 3 hours. So people achieve a super deep level of trance because of this luxury of time and the ability to get into that really relaxed state. And then we start asking questions, really having a conversation with, Dolores called it the subconscious, we can call it the superconscious, we can call it the oversoul, we can call it source, we can call it whatever. They don't care what we call it. We ask them, do you have a name? They say, nope, you can call us whatever you want. Call him Fred, it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
But I use the term higher self. And so that's who we're talking to. Whenever we ask, well, who are you, to Bob, the person, the client, they'll say, I'm the eternal part of him. I'm the part of him that's connected to source. I've always been with him. I'll always be with him. I was with him before this incarnation. Answers like that. So you could also say soul. People might have a understanding, comprehension of that. So that's who they are. They always refer to themselves as we. And so we say they as plural, instead of he or she or it. And so because they refer to themselves as we refer to them as they. And so that's who they are. Higher self.
Yeah. Good. Thank you. And so, this collective too, to understand it as a collective, that at that level is an understanding of the oneness and unity that we actually are. And that's why we all get the same answers. Because
and sometimes I've had a few clients, I don't know if you've had this, where they actually had a visual image of them in hypnosis. And they'll actually say they saw like a council, like multiple light beings collected together to speak to them.
Sometimes I'll actually ask them to either show them like their own inner being, to show the client their own inner being, which always is this beautiful glowing light, you know. And then when I ask about their higher, like I ask the higher self to explain, well, tell them who you are, help them understand you. The answer I get a lot is, I am her and she is me. Or I am him and he is me. I've heard that phrase over and over again. And I love that phrase because it's like not outside of us. We often think it's because we do call them they. We all do it, you know, we all do it because it is they, it's them, it's this huge, beautiful collective that
but it's also
part
us.
of. But it's us, it's within us. It's within us. Yeah.
I love the old spiritual saying, you know, I'm not a human having a spiritual experience, I'm a spirit having a human experience. So I'm just them with a monkey suit on.
Right. Yeah.
With a human suit on.
Yeah. Here doing all these human things that we can't do when we're our spirit self because we don't have that form. And we also don't have the ability. Here's what's great. Speaking of forgiveness, right? We don't have the ability to have something to forgive in other places. So that's why we come here. Yeah.
Exactly.
Let's talk about that idea some more because it's really interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, so I talk about, so in the book, I also share a lot of session stories. These beautiful clients that have come in with the need for forgiveness. And I kind of start the book out talking about the human experience is one of trauma. We all have some sort of trauma. It could be physical, it could be emotional. But the human experience is one of suffering. We've chosen it intentionally for the soul growth that trauma and suffering gives to us. And it's important to the human experience to have this opportunity of duality, of being in a place that isn't perfect, that isn't timeless, that isn't formless. And so we get to have all of these growth experiences through the trauma. And a lot of clients come in, you know, the other part of a QHHT session is we spend a couple of hours talking to the client about their life, you know, their human life, understanding it. And I know you've all of us have received these really, really, really tragic stories. And over and over and over again, when we have clients that have had really challenging early childhoods or prior experiences in their life, and they're looking for healing from this trauma, the higher self unravels it as very, very, very purposeful.
Oh yeah.
You know? One of my favorite stories out of the book is a woman I call Nancy. I've changed all the names to protect clients, but and it's one of the most tragic stories I've ever heard. She was in my office in her 70s, mid 70s, with a cancerous brain tumor, and it was actually it was not necessarily going to be. She didn't approach it as a healing session. She approached it as an end of life session. Let me just make sure that I've absorbed everything I need to absorb. I'm ready to pass. You know, I'm going to start the hospice process, but I want to do this, you know, as kind of a closing chapter of my life. And Nancy's father had been her abuser her entire life. I mean, you know, just think of an abuse that one human can do to another, and that's what her father had perpetrated on her. And so she wanted to look for understanding that, you know, why did I need to experience that? And it's like, what was that all about? Have I healed from that in the way I needed to heal? Have I learned from that in the way I needed to learn? So those kinds of questions were on her list of questions for her QHHT session. And of course, I think you probably already know the answer where this is headed, but her father was an ascended master in her soul group.
Mm-hmm.
He was one of her soul level mentors. And he had actually agreed to come into this plane of existence and play this horrible, horrible villain role, because she wanted to experience it at a soul level.
Mm-hmm.
And oh my gosh, I mean, that's, I always want to throw the caveat when I tell these horrible stories. No one's saying that abuse is the right thing to do. And if you're aware of someone abusing a vulnerable, abusing anyone, you should step in and help, and try to help the situation in whatever is appropriate. But we learn at a higher level that actually some of the trauma, even egregious trauma, can be actually purposeful and asked for at a soul level to understand. And if you think about that, if there's never any injustice, how are you ever going to learn forgiveness?
Yes.
And so Nancy was getting a PhD in forgiveness in this incarnation.
Mm-hmm. And that's hard to understand from this 3D perspective, because not a single one of us here would say, I chose this for myself. Yeah.
Right.
And that person who did that to me is like my best friend mentor on the other
Right.
side. Yeah,
Right.
no. Most people would
Right.
say, yeah, no, that makes absolutely no sense.
Right. Yeah.
Because from this soul perspective, we see it so differently.
Right.
And this is a blink of an eye.
Right.
And also, too, I want to remind people, like when you throw in that caveat, when we're talking to people about this, this has happened in the past.
Mm-hmm.
So this is something that is over. It's done with. We'd be handling things a little bit differently if it was an active situation. Right. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
So yes, but when these things have happened to us in the past, when they have been our experience, what did we learn? What are we taking from that?
Right.
And it's really important.
Yeah, I also think that here's another thing that I've learned in doing QHHT, Erica. I didn't know before, but I always thought, before I started doing QHHT, I always thought, okay, so we come into human existence, get it. We have all these challenges, we do all this growth, we die, and then we go to some sort of healing place on the other side of the veil, and everything's made right over there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No,
right.
This is the healing place.
Right. Yeah.
We come to heal here. And this is where the soul growth and the soul healing happen in form, not the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what made Nancy's session so beautiful, because here she was stepping into that, taking ownership of that healing, and that, receiving, like walking across the podium to receive her diploma, in forgiveness, knowing that her passing was imminent and really wanting to address that, to dive into that.
Yeah. Wow. So I'm curious, was she able to forgive him prior to the session, or did the session help her to forgive?
So both.
Okay, yeah, good.
She had done
it's in stages sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, not sometimes, always.
She had done an amazing amount of work throughout her life. And the higher self recognized that. They gave her lots and lots of kudos, and they were very specific about, specific things that she had done that had helped her. But she still had some kernels that needed to go. And what we mainly addressed, and if she had terminal cancer, so there's a clue there, right? Mm-hmm. And so what we were able to address in that final QHHT session there was really the release part of that, which is purely energetic from the higher self standpoint, purely energetic. And so this is another common theme that is throughout the book. She was holding on to some of that trauma because it was at a subconscious level, at an unconscious level, It was how she recognized who she was.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times, especially with early childhood trauma, sometimes people either they think they've healed, but they've really only done so superficially, or they haven't even really wanted to heal at an unconscious level.
Yep.
Because they identify with the trauma. And it's scary to think, well, if I really heal, if I really heal, if I really release all of this trauma energy, what's going to be left? I'm going to be an empty shell. I'm not going to be who, exactly. I'm not going to be me. And so that can be another challenge with forgiveness as well. It's the true release of all of that. Yeah. And I always put it this way. I said, I think healing is when you even ever forgot that you were sick in the first place.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. Right. Oh, yeah. I had that.
Right.
And that happens all the time.
Yeah.
Like, I forgot I even had that thing.
Exactly.
Because it vanished.
Exactly. Right? And the same with forgiveness. The same with Nancy, of her literally having only fond memories of her father and loving loving emotions with the memory of her father. And that's the sign of a complete release, a complete healing from that trauma.
Yes. When you can turn around and love that person. Yeah. That is the sign.
Unconditionally.
Unconditionally. Yes. With that understanding, because they saw it, right? They accepted it. Oh, tell me the other steps.
So see, accept, release, and move.
And move. Right. And that's exactly what she did.
Yeah. Now C is all about seeing things from the higher self perspective.
Right.
Like let's take a 360-degree view of that traumatic situation from all sides, but from a higher than my monkey suit perspective. Okay.
Has to get higher in order to see it.
Yeah. And then usually when we're in that process, we see our role in it.
Yeah. And then we have to accept that, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Accept is is releasing the judgment. It was an experience. Oh, that thing happened. It wasn't a bad thing. It wasn't a good thing. It was a thing. It happened. And so we accept it non-judgmentally. So we just, we get into a state of neutrality with how that experience happened. And then release, as I mentioned, that's an energetic release of fear energy, judgment energy, pain energy, shame energy, guilt energy. So release is about releasing all of that. And then move is about, now there's more. Oh yeah. Yay. You did it. High five, right? Yeah. And now let's go to the next level.
Let's move into that unknown, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And not look back. Not go picking at scabs from the past. Let's move forward creatively.
Yeah, because it's back there. And the only thing we can change about it is our perspective. Yeah. So once we do that, there is no point in revisiting.
Exactly. Right? Exactly. Yeah. I read a thing online the other day. I don't know how true this is. I haven't researched it myself. But the little quip online said that Jesus in the Bible only ever mentioned one woman by name. And it was Lot's wife. And he was telling the story about the only thing we know about Lot in the Bible, about Lot's wife, I should say, is that she looked back during the cataclysm that was happening, that they were fleeing from. She looked back and turned into a pillar of salt. And that was his lesson there of don't look back. Don't go back there. It's done.
Because it freezes you.
Yeah.
It doesn't allow you to move forward.
It re-traumatizes you. Re-traumatizes you. Yeah.
Over and over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this concept, which is in many of the client sessions, session stories in the book, is this, but I'm not sure I really want to heal, because if I heal, then who am I? Right. And so that can be really, really challenging of of even stepping into the process from the get-go because of just that white knuckle grip
Yeah.
on that trauma energy. Because if I let it go, I'm going to be empty. Who am I going to
Mm-hmm.
be?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah. And that's an interesting thing when we try so hard to hold on to this. And when I do sessions with people who they're being told, their higher self is telling them, you gotta let this go. This is really, this is what needs to be done. And they still don't want to do it. And then they start feeling sick to their stomach.
yeah.
This has happened to me twice now, where I had one actually vomit because of it. And the other one, we were able to keep it at bay because I kept asking questions about why this is happening and what she needs to know. And so she was able to release it once she got that perspective.
Right.
But if we do not release it, our bodies will suffer.
Yeah. Well, and our soul will suffer because, I mean,
Yeah.
so think about this. So your soul incarnated for this lesson that required this traumatic experience, which meant that also had to be a whole cast of characters, of villains that signed up to play the role of villain in your life. So it's your entire soul group then that's in on this journey. And you can only heal in form. You don't heal over there, guys. You heal right here. And then you get into the middle of it, realizing that you need to heal, and then choosing not to heal. Guess what you get to do? Well, you don't have to do it, but you're going to want to do it all over again because
Yeah.
you're going to get past this life. You're going to get back to the other side and you're going to go, oh, yeah, I really want to learn more about shame. Dang it. Okay. Let's try it again, guys. We're
Yeah.
going to do that shame thing, but let's do it a little bit different this way. Okay, you be the husband, I'll be the wife, and you be the villain, and then I'll be the victim in this way, and
Yeah. Yeah. We plan it all out. Yeah. And even I've had a client go to a place where they practice scenarios. Have you seen?
Yeah.
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 So they're like, they try, and they're like, I got it. Yeah, this will be easy. Yeah, going in. I practiced.
Yeah.
And then actually even in that one session, there were people who like didn't practice as much, beings who didn't practice as much. And so they had a harder time because they didn't practice enough.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. One of
So
my
it's
favorite, I'm a huge NDE fan. I love listening to near-death experiences on YouTube. I've subscribed to like a half a dozen channels that share near-death experiences. But one of my favorite is Natalie Sudman. And she wrote, okay, get this book title. This is the best book title of all times. There cannot be a better book title than this.
She already has it.
Her book title is The Application of Impossible Things.
Nice.
Done.
Perfect.
Best in the world.
Yeah, that's great.
It is. Yeah. And so she remembered her NDE and her soul guide. She was blown up in an IED in Iraq in a Humvee. And she knew she was going to come back. But they had to pick out injuries for her human body. And her soul guide on the other side of the veil, they're trying to decide what injuries they're going to give her. And they're laughing hysterically because they're like, oh, what if we chop off your right arm and then you're going to have to learn to write with your left arm and that'll be hilarious,
They think it's hilarious because it is to us at that level.
Yeah. Yeah. It was just a riot, them thinking about all the injuries they were going to give her body. Yeah. Yeah. And it's the same with all of this trauma. I mean, it does on the other side, it does seem really, really easy. And I'm sure, once we're done with this dimension, then we'll look back on it and go, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because this is not the real reality. Right. That's why we're able to laugh at it, because we know it's not real.
Right. This is the holodeck, as Dolores would say.
Absolutely. And so that's why it's so funny, because it's like, oh, look at you getting all caught up in this illusion. When you know deep down in there somewhere, we know you do, that it's bigger than this. And the real reality is this eternal piece of us. Yeah.
Right. So the other thing that I mentioned there earlier, another big part of forgiveness, as society sets us up for this. Oh, there's all kinds of societal games that we play that set us up for guilt and shame.
Oh, yeah.
Guilt and shame. And so forgiving ourselves, for the guilt and shame that we've given ourselves, because we're
Yep.
the only ones that gave it to us,
Right.
right?
And we're the only ones that hold on to it or feel the need for it for whatever reason. Yeah.
Right. Right.
I've had people hold on to guilt because it helps them feel like they're holding on to a person who's passed.
Yeah.
So that's, yeah.
Yeah.
We don't even understand sometimes how subtle it can be.
Yeah. And
And
a
deep.
lot of times it's, but I won't be a good
Yeah.
person unless
Yeah.
I feel guilty. I won't be
Yeah.
doing the right thing unless I pick up this obligation that was never mine in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Unless I'm,
therefore, yeah.
yeah, beating myself to the bone and working myself and getting
Mhm.
sick,
Mhm.
then you know what? You win the
Mhm.
prize. Nobody gives you a
Right.
prize for that. We
Right.
think like it's like makes us this like upstanding human to like do these things that we
Right.
should, that we're told that society,
Yeah.
and really it's detrimental. That's all it is. Yeah.
Yeah. I have one of the stories in the book about shame. I have a lot of clients that come in. I mean, it's, hypnosis on the street is kind of known for stop smoking and lose weight,
Mhm.
right? And so I have a
Mhm.
lot of people that come in before they really know what they're getting into. They want to lose weight, right?
Uh-huh.
And so I always pose the question to the higher self. I pose it this way. I'm like, is Mary's body size too big from your perspective, speaking to the higher self in deep hypnosis? Is Mary's body size too big, too small, just right, or does it matter? And of course, you
Mhm.
know what the answer is.
Right.
I
It
mean,
doesn't
they
matter.
always say it doesn't matter,
Of course.
even if Mary thinks that her body size is too big, the higher self will say, "Her the body is beautiful. The body is perfect. It's a
Mhm.
very strong vehicle," or whatever. They'll use terms like that. And so, we're think about, there's so many women, at least in the United States, I don't know about elsewhere in the world, that waste so many minutes of their life shaming themselves for
Mhm.
how they look
Mhm.
to other people. And from the higher self perspective, they're like, what? Why? Why?
Yeah.
It- your body's perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we think other people care a whole lot more than they
Yeah.
actually do.
Yeah. Yes.
Like we're our
Yes.
own worst enemy in that regard.
Hmm. Yeah.
And higher selves are always telling clients that too. Like they don't
Yeah.
care like you think
Right.
they do.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Love yourself. That's such a big message.
Yeah.
Love yourself, forgive yourself. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
If we could just do
And
that super easily, we'd all have it figured out,
yeah,
you know?
and for even so there's a process of forgiving yourself for the shame and guilt that you've given yourself for things that you should have never been shameful or guilty about in the first place.
Is this process different from
No, it's
forgiving
the same.
another?
Yeah, no, it's
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
that
Good.
really.
Well, of course it's the same
Yeah,
because there are no others.
right.
I love talking about this stuff because it just puts me in awe of our existence,
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah,
Because
forgiveness.
especially,
It's a
well,
big deal. It's a big deal. It's a
it's
big part of the human experience.
a humongous deal,
Yeah,
very humongous deal.
yeah,
So I'm really excited that you wrote this book so people can help themselves
yeah.
do this
Yes,
because we all have something to forgive. I don't care
absolutely.
who we are. We're
And
all
we all
working
have
on this.
trauma.
Yep.
We may not realize it. We may even try to talk ourselves out of it and say, well, that wasn't so bad compared to my friend, Jane, and kind of talk ourselves out of it. But our body received that. Our nervous system received
Mm-hmm.
that. We are monkeys, and so we're mammals, and so we have a nervous system that receives that, and then this same forgiveness process can be used even if we try to minimize our trauma when it wasn't as minimal as we thought it was.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's a really good point because there are sometimes these subtle things. Like I'm thinking of something in my own life that
Mhm.
I was meditating and I saw an interesting color in my root chakra and I was like, what is that? Show me what you're showing me. And a vision popped up of when I was younger and we were sitting at the table eating and there was meat on the plate. And I was like, what is this? It's different. And my dad's like, it's steak, ate it. And and so I ate it and still being like, what is this? And then later he told me that it was venison.
Mhm.
and like, haha, I tricked you. But that destroyed my trust
Yeah.
in my father at that moment. And I never knew it. I
Yeah.
just went on about my childhood like my dad's an ass.
Right.
But,
Right. Right.
so looking back at that, it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's where that little subtle trust thing came in. Because if you can't trust your parents, then, as a child, and we
Yeah.
don't realize that that's what goes on, so deep in our subconscious.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's no victim, there's no villain here. It
Right.
was an experience. What a wonderful experience
Sure.
to
That's an
have
easy one to
that.
forgive too.
Yeah, to
As a
have that
parent, you can look back.
unfurling of that deep level of trust that you could
Yeah.
move through and heal from. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
Absolutely.
all these experiences are so beautiful to help us see that thing
Yeah.
that we need to heal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also I had some conversations with a higher self about that word, heal.
Mm,
What does that even mean? I mean, they're
right.
giving me this
Exactly.
title, surprising healing from the higher self. So what is that? Like
Uh-huh.
what is healing?
Mm,
And they equate healing to growth.
mm,
I think we would tend to use the word growth where they use the word heal. And so it's this transmutation of energy from, it's almost like playing with energy, manipulating energy, that was in one way, and now we've manipulated it into another way.
mm-hmm.
And so you could say, growth, maybe that's not a great word because that connotates little to big. But for them, it's just this change of this transmutation of energy from one state to another.
Well, yeah, I see it as like spiritual growth, right? Like
Yeah.
we learn one lesson, or we finish first grade. Now it's off to second.
Mhm.
And then we learn those lessons and then we're off
Yeah.
to third,
Yeah.
right? So it's this process.
Yeah. Yeah. So from their perspective, healing is just a transmutation of energy. And so then this duality of trauma forgiveness, what a wonderful play of energy, of transmutation of energy. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
isn't it fun to learn how to do that here in this reality? To be able to transmute that energy, to be able to create with it, to do whatever we want with it.
Yeah.
Because really, that's what we're supposed to, one of the things we're here learning to do,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Manipulating the energy,
Yeah.
creating with it.
That's
Yeah, we
right.
get to do whatever we want with it.
Uh-huh.
And that first step, that's seeing,
Yeah.
right? It's all about that perspective.
Yeah. I think another aspect too that I ran into, and I have some client sessions around, the other thing about forgiveness is there's this misconception that if I forgive someone else, that means that I have to continue to accept their
Mm-hmm.
behavior.
Mm-hmm.
That I can, well, if I'm in a state of forgiveness, then I have no boundaries. And I was like, no, sorry, that's not how that works. You can forgive someone and have boundaries with them.
Yeah.
And one of the stories that I have in the book is one of my clients at the college here in Durango, where I live and practice, is a college chartered for Native Americans. Any Native American from any tribe can go to Fort Lewis College tuition free. And so we have a lot of Native American students. And a lot of them come to my office. And they're absolutely, absolutely beautiful and precious. All of it. I love working with young people. I'm sure you do too. I mean,
Oh,
it's just
yeah.
like, oh my God, if I had
Oh,
these
yeah.
answers when I was 19, holy
Oh,
cow.
I know, right? Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Ezra, I called him in the book. He was this physics genius. I mean, he grew up on the reservation, really, really challenging circumstances. Sorry, I've got the train going on in the back. And he was this physics genius, and he was kind of nearing the end of his degree, and he was kind of starting to look at jobs and look at job offers, but he felt this enormous amount of guilt and a sense of betrayal if he didn't go back to the reservation.
Mm,
There were no jobs for hotshot
of course
physicists
not. Right.
on the reservation.
Mm-hmm.
And so the higher self told him, explained to him why he chose that family of origin, and why he chose that challenging early childhood for his strength and his empathy and things like that. And that he was absolutely never to go back and he didn't even need to see his birth family ever again.
Interesting.
Whoa. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
So
a big one.
we have this big sense of obligation that then builds up this sense of guilt, and then we make these massive decisions in our life over this sense of obligation and responsibility. And from the higher self perspective, they're like, no,
Yeah.
that lesson's over.
Mm-hmm.
Go be a physicist, go do what you want to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I find it is pretty rare though when a higher self is like, yeah, you don't ever need to have that
Yeah.
parent in your life ever again. Like a lot of
Yeah.
times they're like, forgiveness.
Right. Right.
Forgiveness.
Well, he did have some of that to do. I mean,
Sure, of course. Yeah.
for him, more societally at
Yeah.
a bigger scale. But
Yeah.
but just to have that freedom,
Mhm.
to that's what the healing gave him, was that freedom to make the decisions that intuitively he knew he should be making, but societally, that guilt and shame was weighing on him and not letting him make the decisions that he thought he should have intuitively thought he should have made. So,
Yeah.
so the higher self
Not
gave him permission. Go.
yeah, it's never a good idea to not follow your passion and your purpose
Yeah.
because of what someone else says or thinks,
Right.
right? You
Right.
know?
Yeah.
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 That's so important.
Yeah.
It's really, I feel like one of the most important things. Do what we feel inside
Right. Right.
without feeling guilty about it,
Right.
because why?
Right.
It doesn't, like when you really think about it, like when I step up in that 360 and look, like why would I feel guilty about doing
Right.
what I like again?
Right. Right. I love Julia, the way Julia Cannon always puts it is don't should on yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't shit on yourself.
Well, there's a song called that too that I often play on this
Yeah.
website because,
Okay.
yeah, it's great. It's called on this website, on this podcast. Yeah, called Don't Shit on Yourself by
Yeah.
Wookiefoot. Maybe we'll play it. We should play
Okay.
it
We should
because
play
it's
it.
a really good theme.
Yeah.
Even though I've played it so many times, but it's okay. I'll
Yeah.
play it again because this is a great theme for today's episode because
And if you
none
have
of
shit
us
on
should.
yourself in the past, which we all have, hey, a little bit of forgiveness. That's all
Yeah,
you need. A little bit of self-forgiveness. Transmute that energy and move.
that's all.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, I love it, Holly. Thank you so much for joining me. Is there
Yeah.
anything else you want to share before we?
So just I've got a special deal on my
Oh, cool.
website for both books, even cheaper than Amazon. And both books are available on Amazon and paperback and Kindle and Audible, all the ways. But if you go to my website, awarecaredurango.com, AwareCareDurango.com, and go to shop, the little shop page there, you get both books for $30.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's a good deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I bet buying it directly from you is a
It
little
gets
bit more
signed.
helpful, right?
And it's signed. to
Oh,
sign
and
it
it's
too.
signed.
Yeah.
Fun.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that puts a little fun personal touch on it too.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Awesome. So it's awarecaredurango.com.
Mhm.
And that's to reach out to you as well. Say if somebody's in that area and wants to have a session or wants to come to that area to have a session.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Very
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
And we also have a fun thing I haven't announced yet, but since we're together, I'm going to announce it. And I'll also talk about this some more, but we are both going to be on the QHHT panel at Disclosure Fest
Yes.
in November in Las Vegas, which is super exciting.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Well, I mean, Disclosure Fest this year is going to
yeah.
be off the hook with
I
all
mean,
of the disclosure that
unbelievable.
has happened already
Oh, yeah.
this
Well,
year.
plus
Yeah.
this Disclosure Fest event, if you all have been listening to this show for a while, you've heard me talk about this event because I go to this event every year and I love it. I love it, love it, love it so much. And so it feels like such an honor to be able to speak on this panel with all of my favorite colleagues. So it's going to be so fun.
Yeah.
And Yeah, it's going to be an amazing event. So I hope you guys will come and see us there because,
Mhm.
yeah, it's going to be a special one for sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Yep.
Great. Well, Holly, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank
It's
you.
awarecaretdurango.com again. And yeah, we're going to leave you guys with a little song for today by Wookiefoot. Don't Shut on Me. Until next time, I love you all. Thank you, Holly.
Thank you.
Hold on, everybody. Here it comes. Two men come and disagree to agree, both one to the other saying what should be. Each climbing higher up, self-righteous powers and catapulting shoulds back and forth just empowers them. Don't get me wrong, I'm the king of it. Just a little bit hippie, hypocrite, winging it. Sometimes thinking that I'm knowing everything of it and putting my should inside a song and singing it. Sing it. Should as it should maybe sounds absurd, but should could be heard almost every other word. When you should on your friends is bad for the health, but you gotta be careful not to should on yourself. These towers of Babel all inevitably fall with cracks in the wall and the building implodes. From the wreckage and the rubble we rebuild another bubble, cause that's the way the monkey mind goes. With the should do this and the should do that, everybody's just trying to do good. But how many shoulds would a good man say? If he could stop, would he stop shoulds? Oh my friend, for the wounds to mend, there's only one thing we should do. Don't you should on me, and I won't drop my shoulds on you. In our numbskulls like a spark in the dark cave where the lights and sound waves paves the way to mental higher ground. All the little thoughts we collect, turn them into bricks with our intellect. Build a tower in your hypothalamus and cortex, our own fortress in the cerebellum. We can carry our convictions to the roof and yell them at the top of our lungs, standing on the top rung. Should as it should maybe sounds absurd, but should could be heard almost every other word. When you should on your friends is bad for the health, but you gotta be careful not to should on yourself. These towers of Babel all inevitably fall with cracks in the wall and the building implodes. From the wreckage and the rubble we rebuild another bubble, cause that's the way the monkey mind goes. With the should do this and the should do that, everybody's just trying to do good. But how many shoulds would a good man say? If he could stop, would he stop shoulds? Oh my friend, for the wounds to mend, there's only one thing we should do. Don't you should on me, and I won't drop my shoulds on